Hello and welcome to this Arise News special coming to you live from the Nigerian capital Abuja. I'm Charles Anyegolu. With the Nigerian presidential elections just weeks away, Arise TV News and its sister organization, This Day newspaper, have begun holding a series of one-on-one presidential debates to help voters learn about the presidential candidates on their ballot. And first in line to participate in these voter education activities, the incumbent president of Nigeria and flag-bearing candidate for the ruling All Progressives Congress Party, Muhammadu Buhari. But straight away, Mr. Buhari declined to be interviewed live on camera by Arise News, preferring instead to hold a recorded session only with This Day newspaper. And so the board of editors from This Day spent over an hour questioning the president about the substance of his major policy signature issues, such as the lapses in security, the fight against corruption, the economy, poverty alleviation, and the infrastructure deficit. Well, those journalists are with me now in the studio, and over the next 90 minutes or so, as we watch excerpts from that interview, they'll give us their assessment of the clarity and coherence of the president's position on various policy issues. Eniola Bello is the managing director of This Day newspaper. Kayode Kamolafe is the deputy managing director of This Day, and Segun Adeniyi is the chairman of This Day's board of editors and former spokesman for the late Nigerian president Umaru Musa Yar'Adua. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for joining us, and congratulations actually for securing what is arguably the most sought after interview in the whole of Africa. Let me start with you, Eniola. You were in charge of setting all this up and liaising with the presidency. What were the parameters that they set for you in order for this interview to go through? I understand there was quite a lot of back and forth.
Well, thank you, Charles. I believe at the initial stage you wanted a live interview with Arise crew, but midway they changed their mind. No, they immediately said no, that they cannot take an interview live, but you could take one recorded. So we had had the assumption that we're going for with the This Day panel and Arise crew, production, engineering, and we have sent the list of people who were to go for the interview. We had agreed on a time to set up the TV equipment, but midway in the afternoon of Saturday, around 1 p.m. or thereabouts, we were told that because of our story in This Day, that afternoon of Sunday, I believe, because of our story in This Day, the lead story, reporting the impending interview, that there had been some pressure to, if not cancel, kind of reduce the nature or the way we're going to go to the villa. So they will not allow Arise crew to come in. They will get NTA to record it for us. They could take the tape from NTA, and that they will not take more than 6 of us to go into. Essentially, that was what happened.
Was there, in your assessment, a clear tactical purpose in the presidency refusing to allow Arise News cameras and interviewers to be part of the session, declining to have it done live on TV and preferring to grant the interview to This Day newspaper alone?
Well, I believe it's a way of protecting the president, perhaps. Every president, like any individual, has his or her own weaknesses. So perhaps they know his weaknesses and they felt that exposing him to a live interview might be counterproductive politically.
Right. Okay. Well, let me ask you this, Segun Adeniyi, because of course you were there, you've dealt with presidents. I mean, you were the spokesman of the former Nigerian president under a PDP government, Umaru Musa Yar'Adua. I mean, how would you describe the mood in that chamber where you conducted the interview? Was it friendly, hostile, or somewhere in between?
No, the mood was evidently very friendly. And I will also say something. The interview was supposed to start at 8 o'clock, and the president came
8 p.m.
8 p.m. He came in exactly at 8 p.m. So we are not kept waiting.
So punctuality, a good thing that you observed there. Right. And Kayode, how revealing was that interview to you? I mean, what did it tell you about Mr. Buhari and his suitability, if you like, for a second term?
Yeah, I think it revealed the fact that the president is a very honest politician, and is not conscious of being politically correct or not, and that is true to himself, and down to earth, Even at the point he actually said it on record that nothing should be off record, that we could publish whatever he said. And some of the things he said that ordinarily you would think that a politician would say, should be off record. So one thing that it revealed to me was that he is not the usual politician, And secondly, the president that we interacted with last night definitely is not a reluctant candidate. Yes, he's really battle ready. He's determined to contest this election, and he's in upbeat mood. Means that will go for it. And while at the same time emphasizing the fact that the election should be free and fair, and that it will ensure that the atmosphere is created for a credible election. So he is really battle ready.
Yeah, well, I think the This Day and Arise News chairman, Dika Obeibuna, when we were meeting with him earlier today, described Mr. Buhari's performance during that interview as brutally honest and not politically correct. So he really wasn't trying to impress anybody or to do anything. He simply was being himself. Gentlemen, for the moment, thank you very much indeed. And again, congratulations on securing that exclusive interview. Now that we have some clarity on the parameters set by the presidency for the conduct of that interview, let's get into the main event, the substance of it all. Here, talking exclusively with this day's board of editors, first of all, about security and agriculture, and thus setting the stage for the Arise News This Day presidential debate series. Muhammadu Buhari, president of Nigeria and flag bearer of the ruling All Progressives Congress Party. Let's listen in.
The Northeast was a major problem area when you took over with the Boko Haram insurgents. And immediately you took over, you move against them, and the military forces were able to overpower them. And you did say repeatedly that they had been totally defeated. In the last few months or thereabout, there has been a resurgence of Boko Haram activities, sacking military camps, taking over communities. What is the problem? Has the military not been able to, why have the military not been able to fight Boko Haram as it seems? Then there's the issue of states where there are clashes, killings in Zamfara, that the government is even calling for emergency rule. In your state, Katsina, the governor complained a few weeks ago about how the place had become unsafe from kidnappers, armed robbers, and all sorts of criminals. In Plateau, in Benue, there are clashes, there are killings. In Kaduna, the same thing. Seems that there have been increase in insecurity across the country. Why have you not been able to nip this in the bud?
Okay, starting from the main one you mentioned, in the Northeast, this is something which you can readily check yourselves. Boko Haram used to occupy 17 local governments in the Northeast, mostly in Borno and Yobe states. But now, physically, they are not holding any local government. What they resorted to was to indoctrinate young people, mostly girls, wrap them up in explosive and expose themselves in soft targets: churches, mosques, motor parks, and markets. This you all know because you are reporting it yourselves. There is really what I can call battle fatigue. The military, I suppose, was less efficient, but that type of warfare of terrorists hitting, they choose their targets, they go and attack it, they withdraw, they disperse. They have to be retrained on that. You talked of Zamfara and Benue and Plateau. You haven't mentioned Taraba. You see, the problem, which I think what I mean by you, the press, the television, radio, and so on, can help to stabilize the country, is to ask for responsible reportage and leadership. The reason is this: the number of people killed in Taraba and Benue put together are not up to the number of people killed in Zamfara state. But then, what the leadership of Benue and Taraba was reporting, because I go through, I may not be reading every article, was that they were giving it religious and ethnic tinge, which is very, very unfair to Nigeria. The Benue people know, and I talked to the governor, the Nigerian cattle herder used to carry nothing more than a stick, occasionally with a machete, to cut foliage and give it to their animal. But these are dexterous with AK-47. And people refuse to reflect on the demise of Gaddafi. Gaddafi, for 43 years in Libya, at some stage he decided to recruit people from Mali, from Burkina Faso, from Niger, from Nigeria, from Chad, and from Central African Republic. And these young chaps were not taught to be bricklayers, electricians, and plumbers, or any trade, but to shoot and kill. So when his opposition in Libya understood that, they succeeded in killing him. They arrested those they could and did what they did to them. The rest escaped with their weapons, and we encountered some of them in Northeast. And they are all over the place now, organizing attacks in Mali, in Burkina Faso, in Niger. You all know it. So that's our problem. You say what I have done about it. You will find out, if you will, as the Inspector General of Police and the Governor of Zamfara State, we virtually change all the officers that served for more than 3 years in Zamfara State. And we did a lot of cross-posting and so on. There are issues that I don't go public as Commander-in-Chief, because it would affect the morale of the men in the front, whether they are soldiers or policemen or administrators. So I try to keep quiet. So the situation in the Northwest and the Northeast relatively are better. But kidnapping got worse because it was taking place from Katsina to Port Harcourt, from Lagos to Maiduguri, and we are doing something about it. And again, they are organized. They are so damn selfish. All they want to get people who succeed. They either carry their parents, their spouses, or their children and demand a lot of money. We are doing our best to track them using technology and using committed Nigerians who will report those who are living beyond their means, without visible means of how they get what they are enjoying. So, but I'm not defending our lack of given security. But you know, after 16 years of PDP, with the resources I have just mentioned to you, they have enormous resources at their disposal. And they will do anything to use that resources at their disposal to discredit this administration. But I thank God, majority of Nigerians are understanding that the leadership of the administration is doing its best under the circumstances. And I assure Nigerians that our priority remains the same: security. Economy, well, all I will say about the economy, maybe before I will wait for your next question on that.
Mr. President,
Yes.
why have you not changed the service shifts and also the Inspector General of Police? For two reasons. One, they have reached the end of their tenure, and two, the job given to them is clear from the outcome that they are not doing it efficiently. Why have you not changed them?
Yeah, I accept the responsibility for that. But I assure you that I'm neither afraid of the soldiers, having been one for about 20 years, neither was I afraid of the police. But my understanding of security is that when you have a case of emergency, you have to be careful with tampering with the head of services. This is again one of my personal experiences. I have been a governor, I have been a minister, I have been a head of state. I came back. I tried to come to this office 3 times. I was lucky to come the 4th time. And 3 times I ended up in Supreme Court from step to step. So really, I am measuring the options very critically. While you have a case of emergency, if you remove the service chiefs and Inspector General of Police, if you don't wait for an appropriate time to do it, then you create competition within the service. There are so many ambitious people waiting, but only one man can be the chief of army staff in the army. Only one man can be chief of air staff in the Air Force. Only one man can be the Inspector General of Police. Don't forget, it was this administration that appointed all the 3, as we observed. I didn't know any of them really on personal basis. I followed records. And I thought I picked the best then. Of course, their performance may not be disappointing, but I accept responsibility for not changing them. But my reason is based on my own experience, having done all the command from second lieutenant to general, both commander and service, and having been a minister, a governor. I think handling the military and the services, the head has to be very careful, because you don't know the ambitions of the ones coming up. Only one at a time can be the head, just like the head of state.
Sorry, as a follow-up, Your Excellency, but you also mentioned something when you are talking about the Northeast. You talked about being battle fatigued by the military. Those things are that some of these service chiefs too may have. I mean, they
are tired.
Yes, sir.
You battle fatigue is those who are really in the trenches. But you could recall at a certain stage, I said they should move the operational headquarters to the northeast. I'm sure you can recall that because you reported it. I think here, well, I'm trying to be relative to my own service, because if I can fall back on my own experience, for the 30 months of the Civil War, I was all in the front. It's only that God helped me. I always stumble in Yam's farm and wear my clothes. While people close me, I've been shot dead. But you see, the level of people that comprise the organizations is good to arrange relief, and that is the service chiefs are doing it. Retraining and changing them, they are doing it. But this one, they are the type of thing they don't go public because we are not very perfect, and some of the chiefs, their families, they haven't seen their families say for 6 months. She may be, the wives may be carrying young children. So that question of morale, your observation is correct, but it's something which the military or the police wouldn't make public, because I have gone through that. Because to make it public, then you start to blame the leadership. And the leadership may not tolerate anybody who goes public with the morale of men under him, under his command, men and women under him.
What about the Inspector General of Police? I guess that one is within the civil space.
Now
And
it's
the-
a civil.
Yeah, and
It's a public
the tenure of the man has ended, and all eyes are on you now as to what you want to. I mean, there are speculations that you want to extend his tenure. I mean,
Yes, I saw it on the television. Somebody has given me last warning that I must. Yes, I have seen it. It's one of you.
The question out there is that you have kept the man, despite his, or what people believe is apparently competent.
Yeah.
Because of politics. Because he's so apparently partisan that you are keeping him there for elections.
I have accepted responsibility. I don't think I'm afraid of him, and I don't think I have organized roadblock and get collection from police to to see that I'll lose some part of my revenue from him. I will take action. Yes.
That's reassuring. I did.
Okay, so, in the 3 years you've been in charge of the administration for almost 4 years now, and I know you've explained several times about the state of the economy that you met when you came on board. You've explained repeatedly an empty treasury and oil prices had plunged. However, I would like to know what you have done and what you will do going forward, because even then, since then, even though the economy is out of recession, it is growing at a very low, less than 2%, which is not, and employment is exceedingly high. At 23%, that is very, very high. So what is it that your administration has to do to turn the economy to grow faster and create more employment? Because as you have pointed out, with higher employment amongst our youths, criminality, insecurity becomes a challenge. So how are these matters going to be addressed? And how are you going to assure Nigerians that you will fix the economy if you come back for a second term?
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, I think the administration was lucky. We prayed very hard to God. Sometimes people who are incompetent, they pray too much, they want God to do things for them. But in our own case, we were very lucky. The rainy seasons, 2016, 17, and 18, although there was some flood in some parts of the country, were very good relatively. And I am sure you know that we virtually achieved food security. And you, especially you who are responsible for informing the people, Nigerians, you have failed, in my own opinion, to fully appreciate the luck we have and what we did in agriculture. We made fertilizer available. At virtually half the price, we met it. And we are producing it locally. We work together with another African country, Morocco. Secondly, I called the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development and the Governor Central Bank and spoke to them that what we inherited from the colonialists is not longer viable. You see, a family, maybe if they have 15 hectares, if they want to loan to buy fertilizer and other agricultural inputs, they have to get a surveyor to survey their land, get certificate of occupancy, take it to the bank as collateral to get loan. You don't go anywhere with that. How many of them were even educated enough? Or they can tell you, is from that tree to that tree, that is my farm, and so on. Not in terms of meters and so on. So I called the Minister of Agriculture, and I told him this much earlier on. I said, you have to go to do what happened in the First Republic. You remember all those cooperatives? It was the most successful at our state of development then. I said, go and read about it, and go and see how you can give farmers loans, soft loans, without interest, as long as the village head and so on can say, yes, this family has got this land. That will be their collateral. And then you give them loans. And this succeeded in what we did in 2006, 17, and 18. I'm sure you have felt it. We don't import rice virtually anymore. We don't import rice. We have stopped importing rice. And we are even exporting grains. But we want to be self-sufficient, say, in maize, so that you know, the chicken feed and so on can be there locally. We have made tremendous progress, and the able-bodied persons, they took away from unemployment in agriculture. We made very, very large strides in agriculture. I don't know why I very much recommend that you do some in-depth study in it and see how much we have earned in agriculture. And people are less dependent on oil now. And we have succeeded in persuading the militants that constitutionally they are supposed to have 13% derivation. If they don't get that, I will be prepared to listen to them. But 13% derivation, that's around the area they occupy in the fields there and the production, which is very, very well calculated by the oil companies. What goes into the rest of the country's water under control belongs to the nation state. So they can't come and claim that they have to be given everything. I have a lot of respect for those who drew our constitution and so on. They did a lot of work. They did a lot of work. So I'm persuading the militants to try and understand and be satisfied with the 13% allowed by the constitution. The rest belongs to the country. But when people are making trouble for us, I sit and ask them, wonder, what were they doing for the 16 years I had mentioned? What were they doing? They didn't know what was happening. They didn't know that the condition of the roads from here to Onitsha, from here to Port Harcourt, to mention a few, was done since last in Abacha's time. We are now doing the roads. We are redoing the rail. Power, we are trying to do the gas one, and then Mabila Filato was what is available to us. So I would recommend you see the Governor of Central Bank, the Minister of Agriculture, and maybe more importantly, Pashola, Minister of Works, Housing, and Power, and tell you how much money out of what we have, we are dedicating to infrastructure, which we think will provide employment and will provide industrialists with the facility, you know, to employ people and produce goods and services. I think if you try to compare what we have done from the time we came into now with the resources available to us, I think you should be here to congratulate me.
President Buhari there talking exclusively to This Day newspaper's board of editors about the insecurity problems across northern Nigeria, and also, of course, about the economy and agriculture. And of course, with me in the studio, Eniola Bello, who's the managing director of This Day newspaper, Kayode Komolafe, who's the deputy managing director of the same newspaper, and Olusegun Adeniyi, who is the chairman of the board of editors. All three of them, of course, part of that interview, as you saw there, grilling Mr. Buhari. But Mr. Buhari seemed quite relaxed and comfortable to me. I mean, he seemed to have, you know, weathered your questions without a drop of sweat on his brow.
Yeah, that's exactly captures it. It was very relaxed. Like Sheikh said before, it was a very friendly atmosphere. And maybe I mean, wrong to say that surprisingly, the president was quite forthcoming, you know, in answering the questions. And even at the point when the point was made that if anything was to be said off record, he said, no, everything should be, you know, on record. You know. And in some of his responses, like I was saying earlier, you could see some profound statements made, you know, so that he has his own perspective in some of these issues, which might not exactly be the same as those of.
Okay, it looks like your microphone's popped out there, so I'm going to go straight to Olusegun Adeniyi and just get his take, because a critical issue here is clearly security.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys raised that question, and you were quite bullish in the way you asked that question. I mean, did you get the impression that this was a president out to sea? I mean, did he answer such sort of tough policy questions like security adequately when you put it to him?
I don't think so, and I will tell you why. Because I believe that in his mind, he still believes that the service chiefs, even though, I mean, he was ambivalent about it, he still believes that the current service chiefs are still the best people to get out of the security challenge. That's not the feeling of most Nigerians. And I see him, he's not likely going to change the service chiefs between now and the end of May.
Well, it wouldn't be, it wouldn't make political sense, though, would it?
Maybe that could be his reading, but the reading of most Nigerians right now is that, look, we have a challenge which the present service chiefs are not able to deal with.
So you don't want to play politics with it, you want to get the right people in and show Nigerians that you can tackle the problem.
Challenge at hand.
Right. And Eniola, what about the clarity and the accuracy of his thoughts and words? I mean, you were sitting there with him. Did you find him to be sort of rambling? Were there misstatements that emerged from him, or did he put out sort of solid, linear arguments about his position on various policy issues?
Well, it needs to be broken down into segments of segments. Yes, really. When you talk about security, corruption, it's forthright. You know, when you talk of the economy, it seems programmed.
Right.
As if there has been two certain things, and there's nothing you say that will make him go out of what he has been told. Sometimes the programming.
So a pre-rehearsed sort of thing, yeah.
So and sometimes you ask the question and you will go off tangent and talk about something that's entirely unrelated to the question you asked.
A bit like Donald Trump, who has a who has a capacity of doing that sort of thing.
So if you bring him back again,
right?
So essentially, I don't think he has a grasp of all the issues, only on the economy.
Right.
Yeah.
But in fairness to him, I mean, Kayode, we obviously don't expect the president to be an expert on everything that crosses his desk. I mean, but on signature issues, and I'm agreeing with Eniola and Shegun there, on signature issues such as corruption, security, poverty alleviation, and the economy, I mean, did he seem to be up to speed on what the actual state of play is?
Yes, of course. We know we're not speaking to a technocrat, and he didn't pretend to be an expert. But the way I see him as a leader is a man of conviction.
Yeah.
And he definitely has his own perspective about the Nigerian condition and what he's convinced about the solution. You know, at a point he's told us that it takes time for him to get convinced on an issue. But that once he's convinced, it will also take time for you to change his mind. So definitely, we have a president who, contrary to perception in many quarters, he has his own solid perspective, which may not be an expert view, which may not be a view that would be popular with technocrats or whatever, but politically, as a leader, he has a perspective, and he demonstrated that.
Yeah, even on the issue of security, he kept saying it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why he kept accepting responsibility for his action.
Yeah.
I mean, he was always looking back to his days as a military man as to why he's taking the decision not to change the service chiefs now, as to whether he's right or wrong.
But of course, accepting responsibility is clearly not enough. I mean,
Exactly.
especially when people are dying and the place is under siege.
In fact, he mentioned the fact that you need to get the right time. And I asked myself, what time can we more right than the time we have now?
Yes.
Where there is increase in Boko Haram activities, where they're sacking armed forces camps, where they're raiding villages and communities, where they're taking over, where Baga and some communities that the military are already taken over before. So essentially, if you say you're waiting for the right time, this is the right time.
But is there a
or even the IG, for example, the IG
That's
who,
Inspector General of
yes,
Police.
or police. Yeah. The IG who cannot contain crime all over the country, across the country, except to attack innocent people or people who write something on social media. And you say you're waiting for the right time. What time is better than now?
Well, gentlemen, stay with me. There'll be more coming from Mr. Buhari in a moment, as well as further assessments of how that interview went from the three journalists you were just listening to who were part of the team that conducted it. Stay with us. Welcome back to this Arise News special. 90 minutes with President Buhari, coming to you live from the Nigerian capital, Abuja. I'm Charles Anyagolu. Well, the holidays are over. We are into a new year, and here in Nigeria, the big feature, the presidential election, is slowly but surely approaching its melodramatic climax. President Buhari and his ruling APC party are, of course, hoping to emerge victorious. They are in the eye of the storm, and it is fair to say that this election has, to a large extent, been transformed into a referendum on Mr. Buhari's first term in office. He has, of course, accepted the challenge and is now well into his re-election campaign, appealing to Nigerians to stand by him. Well, as part of the Arise TV News and This Day newspaper presidential debate series, President Buhari spoke exclusively to This Day's board of editors. We'll hear assessment from 3 members of that board shortly, but first let's listen in to more of that exclusive interview. Here is President Buhari talking about 2 of his big signature policy issues: poverty and corruption.
Your comment on food security.
Yes.
In due respect, sir, it actually contradicts the grim reality of the ground. If we have achieved food security, we will not have the unemployment figures we have today of 20.9 million people. The agricultural sector is the largest employer of people in this country to today. Not the public sector, not textiles, not manufacturing, agriculture. So if we are producing more food, produce, that sector will absorb more unemployed people. Also, it is an incontrovertible fact that Nigeria has taken over the role of the poverty capital of the world from India. So, how could we have achieved food security when we still have 64 million people living in poverty? So, there's a conflict there in what you have said.
Well, there will be a conflict because you work with figures, I work with facts.
Figures.
Well, I'm telling you this. Please, that's why I recommend that you see the Minister of Agriculture and the Governor Central Bank. How much money Nigeria was forced to be allocating to import rice, to import other foodstuff, and how much we are now giving for import of food. It will be impossible if we look at the improvement of our money in terms of what the central bank has. When we came, it was 20-something billion. It's now 43-something billion. Foreign reserve, based on which other nations accept our currency. How our currency will be viable or not. So I think some of these questions you will get the central bank and the Ministry of Agriculture and Ministry of Works, Housing and Power to answer them more efficiently with facts and figures, because they will tell you where we were when we came, where we are now, what we have been able to do in between with the resources available to us. To be fair to this administration, this is the best result. This is the best thing you can do. And the people will understand it because they are the ones going through the mill. If I said there was no flood, I think people will come out and say I'm talking nonsense because there was flood. Look at what happened in Bayelsa. Look at what happened in Kogi. Look at what happened in Kebbi. But all the same, you know, Nigerians are very, very resilient. They bounce back, and we have a relatively good harvest. And I am assuring you about this good harvest. I will tell you, because I come from the real Sahel, just a few kilometers to Niger Republic. And I told you that I didn't know until I have been reminded. People from Kano used to go and hire farms in my area and produce. But for the last 3 years, not a single person hired his farm out. And they never regretted it. And there are people leaving white-collar job in the office and going back to the land. This is one of the greatest successes of this administration. People are going back to the land. They are more realistic. If you borrow money from the ministry or from central bank, you went to the farm, and after harvest, you pay the money. Nobody asks you the balance. But if you borrow from the bank, they will be chasing you around because your certificate is with them. So I think it will be a great thing if you will get the Minister of Agriculture and the Governor Central Bank to talk to you. I think, yeah.
Despite the investment of the administration in the social sector, the Empower program and school feeding program, like my colleague said, the poverty rate is still very high. If you are re-elected, what would you do differently in improving the situation in the social sector? And this will include education and health.
What I will do differently is to lobby you more, to make research and inform the people. Because how I wish I can get people to I wouldn't say they can't disregard you, but to insist that the government is doing well. But you seem to convince the people more than I convince them, in spite of the obvious efforts the administration is making. What I will do differently is to encourage people who go back to the land with softer loan from the Ministry, Bank of Agriculture and Commerce, and from the central bank, so that they can produce more from the field. Because I assure you that people have realized that going back to the land, farmers are no longer looked down upon, they are being respected. And as I told you, from personal experience, we are very happy with what the farmers are doing, and they will be encouraged. Look at the effort we made in fertilizer. We have stopped importation of fertilizer now because we are getting the raw material from Morocco, and we have got the gas here, and we have got so many fertilizer factories on the ground, and we are getting it at half the price it used to be. They are available virtually in all states. So I think we have been making some progress.
I think I can attest to the fact that a lot has been done in agri because I was heavy, I was sick. But there's also a challenge to agri now, especially on the north, and that's insecurity. Many people are afraid to stay on their farm. Many of the cattle rearers who are endangered and their cattle will be rustlers. So security is also tied to this agri that is evolving. How do you address this challenge?
You are absolutely right. And I have told you what we have been doing. I think the law enforcement agencies have to be more ruthless in dealing with abductors, cattle rustlers, And again, it's something you can find out from the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development. I called him, I say, I knew that there used to be cattle tracks and grazing areas. And this was the first republic. And they put earth dams, windmills, even veterinary departments. And any cattle rearer that allowed his cattle to stray into somebody's farm is arrested. And the farmer will bring his estimated cost of damage done to him. And the cattle rearer will be asked to pay him. If he can't, his cattle is sold, the farmer is paid, and he will be given the change. This was in the first republic. But then when there is oil, everybody rushes to the city to drink oil. Now there is so much politics and so much instability in oil economics that we are going back to the land now, and we are not regretting it.
And Mr. President, sir, there is this accusation that refused to go that.
What?
Yeah. People believe before you came in, and people are so much and believe for you that you have zero tolerance for corruption. So there has been this accusation that once people want to escape trial, they should come to your party, PPC, and then their sins will be forgiven. We've had some people that the Anti-Graft Commission was trailing, and then they came back. Some had their passports initially seized, returned to them. We also, for example, we have a senator that was under deputation, came to APC and was received with fanfare. As a result of this, people believe that you have not been firm enough in the battle against corruption.
You see, that one too, I have to illustrate it with a nasty experience I have in this country. When I came in uniform, much younger and ruthless, you know what I did? I'm sure you read about it if you don't know. I got the president, the vice president, the governors and ministers, took them to Kirikiri, and told them that they are guilty until they could prove themselves innocent. And we had a number of committees, almost by geopolitical, to investigate those that were arrested, the governors. And what were taken, what were proved, what they couldn't prove to be their own, were taken away from them, except two people. One, a junior minister of education, from Jigawa State, Bilyamin Usman, he was late. The second one, even more impressive, was Mala Adam Chiroma, a governor of Central Bank and a minister of finance. These two people were the only exception. But what happened? I was arrested and detained, and those who stole almost appropriate public funds were giving back their money. How many Nigerians raised up with their hands? Now I come back, I'm trying to go through the system, and you are calling me Baba go slow. What else can I do?
Are you saying you are satisfied with the performance of the anti-corruption agencies?
I have to stop you. I didn't say so. But as I said now, by explaining, when I tried to be in a hurry, I too was arrested and detained. And I'm sure if you don't know it, I know it because I'm the one who suffered. So when I come back, I have to go through the system. And I found out that a very patriotic young man outside from university, did NYSC, came out. After spending 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years under a crook, he will start thinking twice whether it is better to be a crook or not. When I came again, I removed the top. But we are still making observations. You seem to be know more than what I do. But I assure you that whenever we get the evidence, as much as possible, I think I have to ask EFCC and ICPC to give you the number of assets recovered from people and the amount of money. And that's why I said we should introduce TSA, Treasury Single Account. All the money is coming to the government should go through one account, so that what is seen to be going in can be seen to be going out. Before there are, you get ministries and parastatals with so many bank accounts. Now there is one single account, Treasury Single Account, TSA. And I assure you that the instruction I gave, that assets, houses, hotels, where people swear to God it doesn't belong to them until they are shown their bank accounts and the companies they have floated and the contract they gave to their companies were sold. I say all the money should go through TSA back to the Treasury. I think certainly a comprehensive thing has to be given as part of I think campaign to inform the people what we have done so far in loot recovery, as it were, you know, and we have got hundreds of billions of naira, and we are still trying to get from Europe and America some of the dollars that got stuck there. We needed them at least to ensure that we pay for our external commitments. And we have to thank China for agreeing to do our infrastructure, some rails, some roads, and I think Mambila Plateau, with soft loans, with long gestation period over payment, with low interest. And I virtually had to panic to look for 15% because they on agreed project, they will finance it 85%. So I have to try and mobilize 15% foreign exchange to pay them. So I think if you drive around the country, you will see that a lot of projects are going on, especially roads, because I believe in infrastructure, and again the rail. And if you watch what is happening between Lagos and Ibadan on daily basis, you shake your head. The number of people being killed and the vehicles being destroyed and so on. But we are working very hard to do the rails and the roads, and that will make it much more efficient for people to move up and down the country.
The question is on the selective application of justice in the fight against corruption. If somebody is close to you, the impression is that you close your eyes, no matter how much the person steals.
Is a very
Not close to you. EFC will go all out.
Is a very, very unfair allegation against my integrity. I don't think, anyway, you are in a position to find out. Please find out, and I don't care, publish it. Even if my son or my wife has a company and they are involved in deals with customs and exercise and so on, bringing illegal goods or whatever. I challenge you to do that.
No, Your Excellency, I'm not challenging your personal. Let me give you one example. The former governor of Akwa Ibom, Akwabi, was being chased by EFCC. All of a sudden, they come to your party and they say, meanwhile, you are chasing other EFCC chasing other government. Now it seems, and it's a pattern. Once you drop the umbrella and you pick the broom.
You sweep with that.
Yeah, exactly.
I see.
And the EFCC chairman, those people are lacking the badge.
Yeah.
So people accuse him of being a politician. Like, he's pursuing corruption, only fighting people who are opposed to you.
Well, thank you very much for alerting me. But I assure you that I do not spare anybody unless I don't have the facts. And I told you what I went through, when I try to finish everybody spontaneously. It's not possible. I don't think Fabio, whatever he did, when he moved to APC, I said he should be left alone. I can't remember asking EFCC, ICPC, the police, or anybody to spare any corrupt person or incompetent person. I haven't done it. And I challenge you to expose any.
Your body language.
Well, why should they fear my body language?
Your Excellency, there has been a lot of criticism about your appointment into the security services. They claim that it's lopsided in favor of the law. Do you think this is a fair criticism? And can you help us to understand that kind of appointment?
Well, all I know, the service chiefs, Army, Navy, Air Force, I appointed them when I came. The police, the former police IG left, and this one was appointed. So, if you have been in the military or in the police, there is a problem. I know there was quota system. You get people from all parts of the country. But then, if you are a field officer, you have to be very careful. In the military especially, where I served for about 20 years or more, with that, you don't promote people by their state of origin. If you do it, you are going to have a shock of your life. Shock of your life in the sense that the morale will go down so much that they will become so inefficient that the country will eventually understand and will not accept it. What noise people are making now, changing of the service chiefs. And I told you that in a state of emergency, if you are in charge, you have to be careful about whom you put in charge. You have to be sure of his loyalty. You have to be sure of his or her commitment to the administration and his acceptability by the command and the service. And that will be based by his training, maybe, and experience. It's not, it's a very, very sensitive issue. One way I haven't seen like the problem in Zamfara. I had to directly speak to the IG to remove all officers that have been there for more than 3 years. All officers that have been, I didn't tell him what I say, wherever he will take them, let him take them, but let them.
That's President Buhari there talking exclusively to This Day newspaper's board of editors about issues such as poverty and corruption and so on. And I need to apologize for the poor sound quality there. But as we mentioned from the outset, Arise News did not record that interview. We were not allowed to bring our own cameras and equipment. The presidency insisted on recording it themselves, and they handed the raw footage to us afterwards. But of course, the three very seasoned journalists who were part of that team and who were there asking questions of the president, Eniola Bello, who's the managing director of This Day newspaper, Kayode Komolafe, who's the deputy managing director of This Day, and Olusegun Adeniyi, who's the chairman of the board of This Day newspaper and former spokesman for the Nigerian president, Umaru Musa Yar'Adua. And I'll just start with you, Eniola there. What sense, I'm going to ask you about corruption because that question you asked him, Shegu, was very pointed. But let me just get your sense about the level of the president's energy around this campaign period. Did you feel like he was getting into it with some gusto?
Absolutely, not just physically, because considering his illness and his age, I was surprised that he was very relaxed. He was looking very fresh, and he was quite enthusiastic about the elections coming up. And you could see from some of the questions that we even asked him that he was really unsparing, even of some elements in his party. That is the point that you said, that this man really is not a politician per se. Whatever question you ask him, he just answers, without looking at the implications of what he was telling us. So he is quite, he looks quite up to it. In terms of the enthusiasm to.
Right. Yeah. And Segun, he talked about corruption in answer to your question about people who cross over to his party, the APC, and essentially getting away with it by sort of doing that. I mean, were you impressed and convinced by his answer that he does not give anyone succor in the APC party?
Well, the only thing you grant the president is a man of strong conviction, and you could see that he believed what he was saying. But I think I just want to add one interjection. We did the interview with our own audio tape,
right?
And also we have checked the videotape they gave us. They didn't doctor it. Nothing changed.
Right.
I think it's important to put that. As to the issue of his management of corruption, he believes he's doing the right thing. I mean, whether that's what is I mean, everybody's entitled to his own own judgment on. I'm not convinced by his response, but I mean, he's entitled to his.
Yes, absolutely. And Kayode, you've covered many elections in Nigeria, observed ballots in other countries. I mean, would this interview have helped or hindered Mr. Buhari's chances at the February elections? Would the public look perhaps more favorably on him for not ducking out of this interview, although he did so partially by refusing to allow sort of Arise News to bring our own cameras in?
Yeah, I think, yes. I will answer in the affirmative that he came out on the balance, very well, for me. And especially the way he answered the questions pertaining to the election, over and over again, he assured that he was going to create an atmosphere for a credible election. I remember he said that he had told the police and other security agencies that their role is to ensure that the election is, free and fair and credible, that nobody should be allowed to snatch ballot boxes or writing results. I think that is very, for me, that is very significant. Yeah.
Okay, as somebody who also managed the president before, I think from our interactions yesterday, I don't think it was the president who said our camera couldn't come. I don't think he really, from the way he responded, I think it was, the decision was taken by his handlers. That's my reading of.
So he probably was totally unaware of
I
what
think
was
so.
going on.
He really didn't. He didn't really care about whether what you will say, whether it will offend anybody.
Yes.
So I don't. And the stock camera, maybe he would believe that was our camera. So I don't think the decision as to whether or not Arise should come in was taken by him.
Yeah, but also a critical question was whether or not, even if Arise wasn't there, what you were doing could have been carried live. And they didn't want that to be carried live.
Yeah. I think somebody took that decision. I don't think it was him.
I think I agree with Shegun because at some points, the president will challenge the person asking the interviewer that, I dare you go and publish.
Yes.
So which means
he seemed quite comfortable with saying publish whatever you want.
And he actually said he wasn't requesting for anything to be off record.
Right.
Yeah. So which means that he wasn't bothered, about.
And of course, Eniola, again, like Kayode and like Shegun, I mean, you're a journalist with tremendous experience, many years of covering elections and being a keen observer of candidates on the highest levels. I mean, following this interview and this close encounter that you've had, very exclusive, not many people have that chance with Mr. Buhari. How do you see Mr. Buhari now, with about a month to go before the presidential elections, compared with how you saw him at around the same time ahead of the 2015 elections?
Well, I think he seems to have grown into the job, unlike in 2015, that he was saying so many things without knowing what the issues really well. Right?
Because he become more politically savvy is
now.
what you're saying.
But
right.
even at that, I still have a problem with his handling of some of his answers in terms of his belief in whatever he was told by his aides and ministers and whoever, is that whatever they tell him, he believes. And there's nothing you say outside of that he takes seriously.
But that raises questions, doesn't it, about how much he really is hands-on as a president? Because, I mean, if somebody is telling you things about the economy, and you don't really know how much the people you're serving are suffering, I mean, that's a bit of a worry.
Take the use of rice. I mean, say we don't import rice anymore. Perhaps, but if you go to the market, you see how imported rice all over the place.
And not only that, the cost of rice
has gone up.
Absolutely. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, does it? I mean...
So he only sees what he's told by his aides. But in terms of having alternative facts from outside, I don't think it cares about that.
I'm afraid that may not be very fair, to the president. Because if you remember at the point, I think it was Ijoma who asked that question.
Ijoma who is the managing editor of Arise.
Yes, the president said Ijoma that because Ijoma quoted some figures, as to importation and he said, you are dealing with figures, I'm dealing with facts. I found that very profound.
What
then
facts?
Secondly,
the facts told by his aides?
Yeah. No.
Outside here.
Yeah. What I'm saying is that it's not just because the way you put it. It's as if just a robot that is just programmed to do. No, I don't think so. No, I think it's a man of great strong convictions. Okay, let me give another one. I remember another question Ijoma asked. Said that repeatedly in the course of the interview, the president seemed to be very critical of the elite at every point. And Ijoma finally asked, Mr. President, do you have anything against the elite? And he said, yes. He said, you have answered the question. So I'm saying that he has his own perspective, about it. He might not be very good at the details, but as he has a broad, direction of the way he wants Nigeria to go. Yeah. He has his own mind.
Okay.
Which may not be coterminous with the views of experts.
Sure.
So if you assess him the way you will assess a technocrat or an expert, then you are wrong, But as a philosopher king, as a leader who has convictions about his own view of Nigeria, the same way he said about mercenaries. that as a general of the Nigerian army, that he feels insulted that we go and hire mercenaries, you know. Even
Yeah,
when
but
it's
that's not
obvious.
really the point, is it?
Yeah.
The point is to win the war.
But that,
Anyway,
that is a
I'm
matter
going to
of
ask you
conviction.
to just you know, take a
Yeah.
deep breath there, because we're going to come back to you. More from Mr. Buhari coming up shortly, as well as further assessments of how that interview went from the team that conducted it. Stay with us. Welcome back to this Arise News special, 90 minutes with Mr. Buhari, coming to you live from the Nigerian capital, Abuja. I'm Charles Aniagolu. As the opposition sharpen the edge of their criticism of President Buhari, willing him to sacrifice the seals of his office, Mr. Buhari seems undaunted, rolling out his political machine across Nigeria and thrusting back at the softest parts of his opponent's defenses. As the nation waits on tenterhooks with weeks to go before the general election, Mr. Buhari has been speaking exclusively to the board of editors of This Day newspaper, part of the new presidential debate series introduced by Arise News and This Day. Well, in a moment we'll be joined again by the three members of that board for their assessment of how that interview went. But before that, let's take a listen to more of that exclusive chat. Here is President Buhari reacting to questions about state police, the controversial Electoral Commission appointment of Amina Zakari, and the issue of the minimum wage. Let's listen in.
Thank you, Mr. President. Looking very healthy.
Thank you very much. And you are welcome back to square one.
Thank you, sir. Just a question, sir. At least I had the privilege, I will say it, to interview you as military state.
Yes.
So I don't know if anybody was present.
Yes.
So I'm thinking, do you have anything against state police and against the use of mercenaries to flush out those two so we can get ourselves together? It's on record and on record.
No, whatever I tell you there, I wouldn't mind you to be on record. Not off record. So you get it. One, state police. I have my problem with the police, and I told them from my training and experience, the police are supposed to be the front line. Now Nigerians don't feel secure until they see soldiers on the street. That's not good for the police. And I told the police this some months ago. Now, when we came in, I have just mentioned before you came how much this country was earning between 1999 and 2014. But there are states that were not paying salaries. We had to do what we call bailout twice, and then paid fire scrap and whatever it is. Up to now, there are states that for 6 months you are not paying workers. So when they recruited labor, they want salaries to be increased. I had to relapse into my culture, Hausa culture, and told them about a Ahmed woman. She went to make firewood. She made the firewood, she tied it. Once she couldn't take it because it was too heavy, she increased instead of reducing. When they can't pay the basic salary now of 18,000 naira per month, they said it will go to 30. My budget presentation was no secret. I read it all out. Where do we get the money? From where? Do we print more currency? If you do it, you cannot control inflation. But if we have to stay in government, okay, doesn't force us to print more money. Let everybody be a millionaire. I need the sympathy of the elite to have an in-depth study of our economic problem. God has certainly empower this country. We are rich in people, we are rich in resources, but we have a problem of performance, time factor. Time factor. We have to quickly exploit our resources. We have started with agriculture. We hope we'll make progress with solid minerals as much as we do with agriculture. And then stabilize the oil sector. But really, we have to do the infrastructure, because I firmly believe if we do the infrastructure well, the roads, the rail, power, Nigeria will mind their own businesses. But how much would it take?
Sorry, the police. And then the mercenaries, just to flush out.
The police, I have just told them before we came in how I got the police officers out of Zamfara. It's a major security organizational problem. Allowing the local governments have their own police, it may be more efficient. I congratulated the governor of Lagos State when he started the neighborhood for policing or whatever. It's a good initiative. But Lagos State is richer than the federal government. How many states now they can't pay salaries? You ask them to go and take the police, and you know what will happen if the police cannot be paid? You give him uniform and a gun, and you fail to pay him for 6 months? So, I'm very pleased you realize it's wahala. And I don't want to be a part of it. Now, mercenaries. You know, I just told them again before we came in. I don't know whether I was lucky or unlucky to be in the front for the 30 months of real civil war. I was in the front within small arms range. God spared my life and my health. I think I'm so patriotic, the way I interpreted myself, that I don't like to ask South Africans or anybody to come and fight for us. I don't like it. With about 190 million of us, if we cannot mobilize to fight insurgents getting into our country, then what is the use of our number and our resources? I feel very strongly about that. I said I don't say I will not, but it will take time before I get convinced. I will see what I will do with the military and the police to flush the Boko Haram and the insurgents and the abductors. I'm telling you, it's not part of the campaign, but I am sure it's what I will fix right when I come next time around.
One said that if you were younger, you would be able to do better. And then there was anyway, during your medical condition, you said you have never been that ill. Yet you want to go for another 10. Do you say you have done enough for Nigeria to trust you for another 4 years? And will you also say that you are strong and your age will not be an impediment to go for another 4 years?
Well, I have just challenged you to make an in-depth research and establish where we were when we came in 2015, where we are now, both security, economic-wise, and fighting corruption. The three things we campaigned on, the fighting corruption. Find out what we have done. And yes, I am old. I was hospitalized for 3 months. But I felt, the first place I told my party at a National Executive Committee meeting, that if the party nominated me, I would contest. I don't want diversion of interest. The amount of time Nigerian waste in talking, if I didn't say so, the amount of people that will come out within the party and say they will contest, only God knows. And they will divert people's attention from more serious issues. But mercifully, they decided to leave the party and join other parties and fighting. Up to now, if I haven't lost count, there are 91 parties. Unfortunately for them, a lot of them don't have the money to pay for the contest. But I think around 48 or more have the money. So I feel strong enough to go on campaign. I am inaugurating the campaign team tomorrow. We will draw a program. I will go on the campaign. It's up to Nigerians to decide. But I assure you that what I want the police and the other law enforcement agencies, including the military, that they must respect Nigerians. Nigerians must be allowed to choose whom they like. And I have been asking governors for the last 6 months to do voter education, that they, ordinary Nigerians, each individual ordinary Nigerian is as important as the president because he has one vote and I have one vote. Let them people feel important enough and let them use it, for their own understanding and support.
Mr. President, speaking of elections, could you tell us why should Nigerians give you another 4 years? And what do you think is the best?
Thank you for that question, madam. As I said, at a national executive committee meeting of my party, I told them if they nominated me, I will stand. They have nominated me. And I considered that what we did from 2015 to now, with the resources available to us, I think I deserve another chance. That's why I ask Nigerians. And I ask Nigerians, and I even ask you to use your institutions, do some research, and try to establish where we were, where we are now, and what we have done in between. The 3 things I mentioned, we made some achievements. I believe we could do better, and we intend to do better. But security is number one. And I said it right from the word go. The country has to be secured to be properly managed. And those who are doing the abductions and robberies and so on, I hope God will give them the sense to realize what they are doing for the country. Nobody can invest heavily where there is no security. Would you come to our country and bring billions of dollars if your managing director will be abducted and then somebody asks for $100 million? You wouldn't come. If Nigerians wouldn't understand that they are hurting themselves more by abducting people and asking for money, they are hurting themselves more than the rest of the country. I think we have got, all of us, especially you, who are trying to control the opinion of people, that we are not succeeding. We are not succeeding in persuading people to behave themselves.
2011,
Yep.
INEC Commissioner Mrs. Sakari was part of the election, which you lost.
Mm-hmm.
She was part of the election which you lost, and which you now won. Now there is a controversy about her relationship with you, which I think is unnecessary, but at the same time,
do you know the woman and what exactly? Because we have all kinds of things. We want to know what exactly your relationship is.
What does the Constitution say?
No, it's not a personal issue.
No, is she the
No, it's not about the Constitution. It's not that appointment is not illegal. But people are, there are all kinds of stories as to his relationship with her. We want to, it's a public interest issue. We are not disqualifying her. We really want to know what the story is.
I'm very pleased. I saw her trying to explain herself. She was appointed by Jonathan. Is Jonathan House of Fulani man? Yeah. And you said she was there when I lost 2011. So certainly she's my relative. What?
Is it true that you recommended?
No, not at all. Not at all. All the president, from the time I came out of detention to the time I came here, none of the president asked me to submit a recommendation for either to be in cabinet or to have any appointment. None of them asked me, and I haven't volunteered any. We have no blood relationship, but it's a complex Nigerian historical problem, which I wonder. Did you study history in university? Then you would have known about the Fulanis and the indigenous people they met here, the Hausas, and the Kanuris, and so on. The ruling, when Usman Fodio came, he overran virtually Hausa land. But some of them, when the colonialists came, they reinstated the houses. In my town, they reinstated the houses. But in her place, the Fulanis are still in charge. I happen to be a Fulani from a Hausa controlled place. She is a Fulani from a Fulani controlled thing. If that is a relative, I have accepted it.
Just how we deal with this question. About 5 areas. I think it may not put your advantage, but it will not put your past disadvantage. Open State. Zamfara. In new parties, but they've adopted you. Ogun, Imo, Zamfara. Well, no, even Rivers. Rivers is a big issue. Rivers is, you have a candidate campaign. You have the candidate sitting at home and waiting for the court to make him the candidate. So all your sons are fighting for, that's number one. The second and last question is, okay, you got another 4 years. Are we going to have the same team that work with you? The same process of appointing them? Some have done well, some have not done. Would there be a new process of appointing new people? And if so, has the process started?
It's a pity we didn't start with you, but some of the questions have been explained. I mentioned that what this country was earning between 1999 and 2014. All the same, when we came, we have to give state money to pay salaries. Now, which kind of education are you giving voters? You know, to vote out incompetent governors who are mismanaging their resources. What were you doing about it? Your question of what is the question?
On the political side,
or
the administration side, political side, let's start with that. Givers.
Exactly. There were about 8 states anyway.
And
There are about 8 states.
But they have all adopted you, so you have not lost any of them.
No, my adoption, I hope it's not for their selfish reasons
Of course.
that they adopted me. The important thing is the party, I think the party has been very impartial. There are series, direct, indirect, and consensus. And the party ought to be able, in each state, to pick one of these three, agree with it, so that there will be no problem. Direct, indirect, and consensus. But all the same, how can a governor sit and say, you will be governor, you deputy governor, you go to Senate, you go to... You see? It's extremely serious. The party has been very, very fair. And why, I don't know why you, the elite, will not take the responsibility of educating voters, that those who do not respect them should be voted out.
Absolutely.
But you are encouraging them.
No. What I'm saying is that in fact, I've already started, which I don't have to tell you. I've started telling the police and law enforcement agencies that if anybody tries to rig this election at whatever level, I will deal with him.
No, that's not right. You are encouraging anti-party activity. Let's take the example.
But we see that if you have the
The guy came.
to see you.
Yeah, let it. Is it not his state? Direct, indirect consensus.
Running for president.
If he refused for that, is it not for the people to refuse to vote him? I don't tell the people what to vote. I ask them, vote for people that have qualified by your conscience to be voted into power.
And go to court. You see, I'm not a politician. This is high-stakes politics.
No, no. I told people who will tell me anything about Nigerian politics when I ended up 3 times in Supreme Court, and I said God day, and of course the first time God day, and I thank technology.
So now, so that's the second part. This is an important ingredient of the transition to a new government. If people want you to come back for another 4 years, they want to see that on May 29, there are changes. There's a plan. Are those plans still on? Those people you have identified yourself, or just followers, don't. But we can have a new vista for the sake of the country.
Well, I think he asked that question. He said some people are not being punished. And now you are saying some people are saying they haven't been rewarded. So maybe I have tried to work out a middle course. As far as I know, I congratulated the authors of our Constitution. And I stand to congratulate partisan politicians for working within the Constitution of the country. I do not at any moment try to be too clever, because I cannot be too clever for Nigeria. But I'm very proud of my consistency, that I lost 2003, spent 30 months in court, 2007, spent 18 to 20 months in court, 2011, 8 months in court. I still continued because I believed in this system. But if people refuse to convince constituencies to vote those that they believe will deliver, then again you can't blame me. You can't blame me. I said I will facilitate free and fair election, and I have already been started talking to the police and law enforcement agencies. Nobody should be allowed to go around with an army of thugs, snatching boats, boxes, you know, and filling them up and supervising counting of votes.
I think one challenge is, assuming you are elected and you are sworn in on May 29, are we going to wait another 6-7 months before you pick your cabinet like you did the last time? That's what you want to know.
No, I assure you, we will not wait that long. And maybe that's why I haven't picked to replace some of the cabinet change. I will see where my boss deserve ministers. It's natural, it's politics. Somebody made an observation, and they are mentioning it publicly for the first time. But I am not patronizing the Igbos from the southeast. I took the paper from him. I told him that when I won the election, I studied the amount of votes I got from all geopolitical zones. I say I got 198,000 point something votes from the whole of Southeast. 198,000, which virtually any local government can give me up country. But I put Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Labor, Minister of Industries and Investment, Minister of
U.S. Ambassador. Science and Tech.
Mines and Tech.
No, science and tech.
No, I'm telling you.
To U.S. Ambassador Minister.
No, don't talk to even with the U.S. Ambassador. That one he wrote a minority report on my behalf. So I'm feeling him back. But these four, I never knew them from Adam. But from 7 states of the north, I have ministers of state. They are under certain ministers. How fair do you want me to be? So I threw him away with his paper. Yes.
Mr. President, what is a common thread in this interview? You've kept referring to the elite. You said that the elite, you need to explain to them, they need to be more understanding and
Yes.
more supportive. Do you believe that the Nigerian elite is very critical of your presidency? Because you keep referring to the elite. Maybe it's because you have more support amongst the masses. So
Exactly. You have answered the question. You have answered the question. Because I told you my grudge against the Nigerian elite. What happened, I challenge you to check in Europe, America, Asia. This country was getting 2.1 million barrels a day. You know, getting out of the Nigerian territory. 2.1 million barrels a day at a cost of average $100 American per barrel. It went up to 143. But when we came, it collapsed. And I told you, I went to Central Bank. I say, oh yeah, you know the fact, this is what is happening. What happens? He said, only debt. I refuse to remove him because he has to account for what is being happening. 2.1 million times 100 times 16 years. Look at the condition of the infrastructure. I told you, the roads, the rail was killed. There was no power. But look at what we did from 29th May 2015 to now with what is available to us. I ask you, ask the people, educate them, ask the people and see their reaction. Why? No, I haven't finished with the Nigerian elite. Where were they when people were taking this money? What is on record that the Nigerian elite, who are supposed to know how much the country is earning, where it is going, why did they accommodate the irresponsible, expenditure of public funds for the 16 years of PDP. Why did they tolerate it? I have no evidence that they came up as an elite and asked the authorities.
I think you are right, sir.
You are nervous because you are one of the elite. Okay, carry on.
Actually, since I need to separate them to bring back the issue of minimum wage.
Yes.
Look, the principle of minimum wage, there are two aspects to it, and you have only emphasized one. That is the ability to pay. The other one is the payment of a living wage. Mr. President, are you convinced that 18,000 naira is decent wage for any Nigerian to be paid as a minimum? Because that's the point Labour is making.
You see, I can only answer you this by trying to give you facts. The facts I'm giving is this. There are more unemployed Nigerians than employed Nigerians. That is one. Two, these states, you know it, with all what I have said about they have been given, they couldn't pay the minimum wage. There are states that are owing up to six months' salaries now. Even more, you see, you even know more than I do. Now, if I say they will pay 30,000 and they can't pay, for the private sector, you have no problem. If you can't pay, you retrench. But can the state government, the cities or government, federal, state, and local, can we afford to create more unemployment? I think it's better to get 18 than to get nothing. To me, this is what I believe. This is what I believe. And when I presented the budget, I thought I was very sincere. I still believe I'm very sincere. I didn't hide anything from Nigeria. What we are capable of earning, how we are going to spend it, because of the infrastructure and our economic perspective of it. It has been very clear. What is the criticism of the elite of the presentation of my budget? What is it? Haba. We ought to do much better, honestly.
Just final last question. What are the areas that you think you are more challenged in this election? Aside from Northwest, which is your area, what all those other 6, 7 zones, which are your most convinced people that you think they will vote for you the most?
You know, I don't know whether you inadvertently answered my question. That I think more of the ordinary people than the elite. I believe the ordinary people feel the impact of my efforts, especially the farmers. Especially the farmers. Because the farmers, this money they get from Ministry of Agriculture and the Central Bank, once after harvest they pay, nobody asks them about the balance. Unlike the pursuit by the banks, they keep on harassing you.
And that, of course, is President Buhari in pretty relaxed mood there, talking to the board of This Day newspaper, board of editors there. And with me in the studio, Eniola Bello, who's the managing director of This Day. Kayode Kamalafe is the deputy managing director of This Day newspaper. And of course, Olusegun Adeniyi is the chairman of the board of editors of This Day and former spokesman for the Nigerian president, the late Nigerian president, Umaru Musa Yar'Adua. 3 of them, of course, part of that interview team. They put the president's feet to the fire, as it were, and they are with me here in the studio. And I'll start with you, Kayode. He addressed that issue of the appointment of Amina Zakari, who is alleged to be his relative, either by blood or by marriage or something to that effect. Was he clear on that nettlesome issue?
I think he gave his own perspective of his own narrative, which of course is in contradiction with the narrative of his critics, And from the way he answered it, it doesn't take it to be a serious matter.
Well, what I'm curious to know is, I mean, was he ineluctably clear as to whether or not she's his relative or not? Because that's the first premise, to establish that, and then whether or not, you know, there's some influence likely to take place or whatever. But was he clear on whether or not she was his relative?
My understanding of his answer is that they are not blood relations.
Right.
Yeah.
Because what the impression I'm getting is that they're related by marriage or something.
And I also think the criticism for me is unfair to the president. It wasn't. This woman was appointed in 2010, before the 2011 election, which the same president lost in 2011, and then she's been there. She was appointed by President Jonathan and reconfirmed by President Buhari. I mean, at a point there was a controversy as to whether she would be the chairman. And I also know that the role she is expected to play,
she even acted as chairman.
It's not a critical role. She's just going to manage the conference center. The person who will do the collation of results is a constitutional issue, and is the chairman of INEC. So for me, it's a non-issue.
Right. So Eniola, he addressed, as you said, that issue of Amina Zakari, which is very controversial in Nigeria at the moment. Not surprisingly, of course, the allegations swirling around her have prompted complaints that he's intending to rig the elections in February. I mean, what is your assessment of how he responded to that? And again, about this very worrying issue for a lot of people about, you know, his relationship with Amina Zakari.
Well, I think it was very clear that they are not related in any shape or form. And I think I was also very sure that for him, the election would be a walkover from the way he handled all the questions. So he was not really bothered about the controversy around Amina Zakari. And that was why he said that he had directed the security agencies to deal with anybody who attempted to rig in any shape or form at whatever level. So obviously, he's confident that he will win the election.
And Kayode, he touched on the issue of his age and his health. I think that was at the outset of that last sort of segment that we heard. Both he and his main opponent, Atiku Abubakar, are in their 70s and showing no signs of making way for a younger generation in a country with an increasingly young sort of voter profile. And regarding his health, I think many Nigerians, it's fair to say, believe that he is so old and frail, although he didn't look it on air, that he spent many months of his incumbency in hospital in London. There have even been rumors that he's dead and has been replaced by that's pretty bizarre, I have to say, but he's dead and has been replaced by a lookalike. I mean, were you suitably satisfied by his response on those issues?
I am, and just like I said, you know, seeing him physically, he doesn't look frail. Like, he looks fit.
Well, that's why.
I'm not his doctor. I'm not his doctor, and I don't have access to his medical. But just physically, he doesn't look frail, you know. And besides that, even morally, he feels very strong. He feels that he's really ready, you know, for the election, and that he's fit and proper to seek, you know, a second term. I think he's quite convinced about that, and he's quite ready. Yeah.
I think for me, what really came across watching you guys interacting with was a very convivial atmosphere, and he just and as I think Eniola said, he just seemed hugely confident.
You know, interestingly for me, the last time I met President Buhari was 4 years ago. The interview they had with him, that was the last time I met him in person until yesterday. I mean, that encounter, because I remember I was trying to nudge him because he was talking about being rigged, and I kept reminding him, my boss defeated you. At a point, he got agitated and said, well, you are entitled to your opinion. The atmosphere yesterday was even more relaxed than it was 4 years, and it looked very healthy.
Well, I would imagine that he'd be more relaxed. He achieved his goal. I mean, he is the president of Nigeria, and there's no doubting that part. I mean, he's unshakable as far as his conviction in that direction is concerned. But, I mean, following on this exclusive interview, Eniola, with Mr. Buhari, are you quite clear now on what he's promising the Nigerian people and why he should be given a second term?
Well, I'm not sure he made any promises outside of security, at least from the interview. He only said if he's elected, the first thing is to have security before you can do any other thing. Now, whether with the handling of the situation now, where there is an upsurge in Boko Haram and the general insecurity in so many states, whether with the handling or the apparent helplessness is enough to convince people that he is the person to do it, it's another thing entirely. Now, whether he will change his approach if he's elected is also another thing entirely. So we don't know. You can only based on conjecture. But for me, he has to do more than what he has done so far to bring Nigeria to a state of where people will be confident, secure in the country.
And did you, Kayode, get the impression that he wanted this presidency, this re-election badly? Did he come across that way to you, or he just didn't seem to care?
No, it didn't sound desperate, but he's very confident, from his pronouncement. And talking about what is promised, I think in programmatic terms, is not going to be anything different from what the pillars of his administration, are, namely security, the economy, and anti-corruption fight.
Yes.
And like, if you also watch the clips, he said that he knows that he could do better. He could do better than what he has done, and that he would do better. I think at best what could be expected is just to improve on the programs which are already there, not expecting anything new.
And of course, Segun, let's face it, looking, and you asked that question about the state of insecurity in Nigeria. I think Ijeoma Nwogwu was quite focused on the parlous state of the economy. I mean, given all that, beyond the fact that you were sort of sitting down and rubbing shoulders with the president of Nigeria and rather enjoying the convivial atmosphere.
I enjoyed that for 3 years too.
Oh yeah, of course you did. So it's nothing new to you.
Yeah.
But it's just like going home again, isn't it? But I mean, how much of a surprise, given the issues you raised, the security, the economy, and so on, how much of a surprise would it be if President Buhari wins a resounding victory in February? How much would that strain credulity and reinforce the suspicion? And not necessarily your opinion, we're going beyond that and broadening it out now to the Nigerian people, reinforce the suspicion that the election has been sabotaged?
No, I don't expect that the election will be sabotaged in any way.
Right.
I expect that we are going to have a credible election, and the winner is going to emerge. It could be either, there are several people in the contest. The only thing I can say right now is, for me as an analyst, somebody who has followed Nigeria election, it's a two-way contest. It's between the president and the candidate of the PDP, that's Vice President Atiku Abubakar. Of course, there are other contenders there, perhaps even more credible than these two. But this contest, the way it is, it's going to be a straight contest. So it's either the president wins or the former vice president wins. That's the way I see this contest. And I will not be surprised if the president wins or if Atiku wins. I won't be surprised.
And Eniola, are you agreed with that? Is it incontrovertible in your assessment that this election will lead to the continuing oscillation of power between the APC and the PDP?
Absolutely. There's no other party that has the resources, the structure, the spread to win the presidential election. Only these two.
What about the Nigerian people, though? I mean, what about the fact, and which is what a lot of these other third force parties are counting on, that they have got to the point of political maturity, that you have a new voting group of people coming in who are all young. They now constitute arguably the majority of voters, new voters coming in and so on, that they might be driven less by the issues that were of concern to the older generation, ethnicity, religion, all of that, and be driven more by the ideology of the day, issues like employment and all that sort of thing.
I think that is another utopian. You see, when you talk of the youth, I laugh because I watched one video of one of the so-called youth in his 20s saying that Saraki was the party in Kwara. Not PDP, not DP. She said Saraki was the party. Is it the same youth we are talking about that we now that has so changed so bunch of new ideas?
Yeah, you have NANS president going to promise 20 million votes
yeah,
for
we
the
are.
president.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
it's,
abusing their teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in addition, Charles, I sympathize with your idealistic proposition. Yes, yeah.
Well,
yeah,
I'm simply putting
no,
the questions.
I sympathize with
issues
with
that are,
the idealism,
big issues of the
but I
day.
beg that it should be tempered with what our chairman Ndeka Bagwana calls the infrastructure of winning election. All those things you have stated about ideology, about program, about the need for generational change. They are all the infeasibles. But the feasible one, which we call the infrastructure of winning, like Sheikh said, and which is confirmed by NEB, is only available to two parties, namely APC and PDP. And that is why the only addition I will add is that I think, contrary to what either of the two parties we have now, we are actually going to have a keenly contested election.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a keen competition between APC and PDP.
And on that suitably bucolic note, gentlemen, I want to say thank you exceedingly for not just taking the time to be with us, but also for conducting a very, very interesting animated interview with President Buhari there. Eniola Bello is, of course, the managing director of This Day newspaper. Kayode Komolafe is the deputy managing director of This Day newspaper. And last but certainly not least, Olusegun Adeniyi, the chairman of the board of editors of This Day newspaper and former spokesman of the Nigerian president, Umaru Musa Yar'Adua. And just to let the audience know, and all our viewers, we thank you exceedingly for being with us, that this is just setting the stage for the Arise News This Day presidential debate series, which of course kicked off with Muhammadu Buhari, president of Nigeria and flag bearer for the ruling All Progressives Congress party. There will be more in the series to come. That's it for this Arise News special, 90 minutes with Buhari. I'm Charles Anyegolu from the entire team here in Abuja. Bye-bye, and thank you for watching.
Thank you so much for watching our videos. Now, we need to spread this word, and we need to do it together. For that to happen, we need your help. Just 5 little steps that you could help us to spread the word. Number one thing we need you to do is to like the videos. Please go like this video right now. Number 2, if you have not yet subscribed to our channel, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Number 3, we need you to press and click on that notification bell. You see the bell? Go press on it. And number 4, we need you to go comment. Write your comment, good or bad. Just write what you feel. Number 5, share, share, share. Share on every platform. Share on Instagram. Share on Facebook. Just share and spread the word. Thank you so much.